You're listening to Real Talk live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, and we are blessed to have a very, very good friend and special guest in the house, Mr. Scott Titus. Chief Titus, how you doing, everybody?
I'm doing great. How are you, John?
I'm doing good. So uh, let's start out with an event that you guys had over the weekend, and I'm going to give you kind of the floor. I'm going to take myself off, but kind of want you to give an overview of what that was about with the police department and why you guys do it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So this past weekend we did, I think it was our 16th annual, we call it the Remember the Fallen 5K Memorial Run. And it was something that was started by the Honor Guard here with the fire department. And the Honor Guard set up their own nonprofit many years ago because we didn't have funding to support them with uniforms and things like that. But they really wanted to represent the fire department. And so originally it started and we did different fundraisers to get uniforms for them. And then over the years, that's morphed to a lot of different things. They actually purchased the antique Seagrave that many of the citizens have seen around town. And they contributed the majority of the cost of having that refurbished before donating it back to the city. The city contributed as well, but they did a large portion of it. And that can be seen displayed up at Fire Station 86 up in Welland Park. But the run started, and on September 1st, 2001, there was a firefighter that was coming into the city, and he had all of his gear with him, and he got stuck in one of the tunnels in the kind of all of the traffic that had stopped. Everybody was kind of locked in place. And so he got out of his car with 60 pounds of gear, and he ran from where his car was in the tower to his fire station. And it was about a 5K run. And he did that with his full gear on. And so his name was Stephen Siller or Seiler. And so we started this run kind of in memoriam of him and of all of those that lost their lives, police, fire, Port Authority, EMS, and of course, all of the citizens that lost their lives that day. And they do a similar run in New York City. They actually started it the year after. So they started in 2002. They've done it longer, obviously, than we have, but over 500,000 people have now run in that run since 2001. This year we had between 600 and 700 registered runners. And some of our runners were our firefighters that ran in gear and some not in gear. Some we had some members from surrounding fire departments. We had a chief from Charlotte County. We had a couple of firefighters and an officer from City of Venice. We had a retired Sarasota County officer. I think we had a couple of Englewood guys and some Nokomis firefighters too. So a lot of guys from the community, and a lot of our personnel were there in attendance, either running or being a part of the festivities. I put gear on. I did not run the whole run. I did part of it. I actually took a shortcut, went down to the end and got video and pictures of our personnel as they were kind of running by close to the end of the race, which was really, really awesome to see. And just a good morning to be out there with our community and people that support us and support a good cause. So it was a lot of fun. So obviously there's some somberness to the event, but we try to make it, as joyful and in memory of all those that went before us. So it was great.
There's a lot of things that you guys do over and beyond that sometimes some people are aware of it, others aren't, but you're very active in the community, and I know you on a personal level a lot more than I used to, but talk about the commitment you guys have to the citizens and what you guys do on that give back sort of basis. Because I like to think there is a direct connection between the police and fire on how they connect back to the citizens.
Well, first, I have to give props to our brothers and sisters in blue, because they do a much, much better job of advertising all of the things that they do. They are so active in the community. They do a phenomenal job. We do a lot of things as well. We're not as great at tooting our own horn. We're kind of working on that. And of course, police department has included us in some of their activities. But, a lot of our efforts are in our service delivery every day. And then a lot of our extracurricular activities are through public education, things like that. And then again, we have a firefighters benevolent, which is a 501c3 also, which we raise money throughout the year, and all of our members contribute directly to. And half of that fund is utilized to support members of our community, like kids, if they need sponsorship for a local sports team or something like that, they can contact us and we help out with that. We do a t-shirt drive every year, and then we take the proceeds from that and we donate that to a member of the community or a member of the fire department who's battling, cancer. So we do that in October of every year. So you'll see this next month, you'll see our firefighters are wearing shirts that are different than our normal everyday uniform shirts in support of that. So we'll be able to donate to the community. We've actually selected a member. We have a couple of our members that are battling career-related cancer right now. One of them was a recipient last year, and one will be the recipient this year. And we just made a couple of donations to some local people in the community. One of the gentlemen that works at Lowe's is having a tough time battling. We just made a donation recently to his family, and actually a couple other donations also for people in the community that are battling cancer. So we try to do a lot. Our big thing, honestly, in everyday service delivery is we exist for one reason, and that's to be here to serve the public. And we are very, very cognizant of the fact that's what we're here for. So there's a very tangible difference, I believe, in our service delivery every day than what you'll find in surrounding areas. And that's not speaking poorly of them, but it is building up our team. They really, really go the extra mile to make sure that our community members know how important they are. And I always tell them they don't, most members of the community, they don't know what we're supposed to do on how to put out a fire or how to treat a medical emergency. But they're always going to remember how you made them feel. And so it's having that compassion and making sure that we have that personal touch in everything that we do, and helping them in their time of need on a day that's their worst day when they call us, to be there and kind of be supportive of them, not just for the actual emergent need, but also to support their family members and what their needs are, trying to alleviate the stressors they have that day, make sure their house is secure when we leave, all those types of things, make sure somebody's taking care of their pets or whatever. And everything and anything that we can do, really.
I saw a post this weekend for suicide. Did you guys participate in that too?
We didn't actually. We heard about it the night before, but that's for the whole month. So I think that we'll be doing something either ourselves or in partnership with the police department. They had police officers out on the corner out here on Sumter that were holding signs and just letting people know. One of the things that we stress, not just internally in our organization, but even to the community, is that there's always somebody there that will listen, and there's always somebody in our lives that will help us see that there is hope in whatever we're dealing with, and that suicide is not the solution. That we can help them with resources, we can help support them, we can do really whatever it takes. And a while ago, I'd heard a podcast and read an article about 8 minutes, and it talked about in 8 minutes how much you can really talk to somebody and understand what's going on with them, give them an ear that they need. And 24/7, 365, I like to tell people, I said, I've always got 8 minutes. Doesn't matter how busy I am, pick up the phone. And certainly I'll give more than that. But it was kind of neat how it had wrapped up, and use that as a little mantra. But everybody has 8 minutes that they can give up out of their day. And there's nobody here. I think a lot of us have people that were close to us in our lives that we've been affected by suicide. And, we always think about if that person had reached out to us or reached out to somebody, that maybe that would have changed that outcome. And so we want people to make sure that they know that those options are there and those resources are there, and that people care about them all of the time, and to not make that decision.
And I'm going to couple that in, because we've talked about this in the past, but having the mental health hospital here now, that's been a real connection for you and your organization, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And in early talks with them as they were coming into town, we're still working on setting them up kind of as a primary resource for anything that we need. As they've gotten their doors open and they're more full-time operating, they're going to be adding services and things like that. But yeah, they have, that's one of the resources that we have listed, that we can provide a phone number, provide somebody that any one of our personnel can go and talk to. They have education offerings that they do. We have a team set up internally, as does the police department and most of the surrounding agencies do, that do, diffusing. And there's certain types of calls that we have that we kind of target and we flag. We go back and we check on the people, certain timelines, the day of the incident, then within a week, and then, 8-9 weeks later, we recontact them and make sure, are they still dealing with this, or, and on that longer extended period of time, if it's still something that's weighing heavily on them, then that kind of tells us if they haven't sought, some external resources or some help that they probably need to do so. But we have that set up internally where we reach out to each other and make sure that everybody has those resources and that understanding that they're available.
The listeners out there right now, if you have a question, comment, or anything you'd like to say pertaining to fire department or police department, or anything that's going on in the city that you would like Chief Titus to address, he's more than happy to answer questions or comments that you may have. So please feel free to address those, because we're doing this really for the citizens, aren't we, Chief?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things that I wanted to share today before we got too far into it was we talked a little bit about the memorial run that we had this weekend, but obviously September 11th is coming up. It's the 24th anniversary this Thursday. And so we will be having a gathering out in front of City Hall. We'll start our ceremony at 9:15 in the morning. We'll have several speakers, bagpipes, to kind of honor those lives that were lost on that day, and kind of where we've been and what we're doing since that time. So we welcome anybody in the community that wants to come and be a part of that and to watch. I think it's a good time to come together, and it's a good time for everybody to put aside political differences, all of these things that sometimes we all get wrapped up in this world, and remember how everybody came back together on September 12th, 2001, where we were really one country, and we had a solidarity like I don't think I've ever experienced or seen really in my life. So,
and I thought that was going to carry on for a long while. It seemed to kind of dismantle itself quicker than it got assembled, I think. Yeah. I would love to get that feeling back. I think we're lacking that right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we talk about the hospital coming in and the growth there. We've got the Sumter Hospital that is in the works. We've got all kinds of growth at Welland Park. We've got the project on Price Boulevard that's now taking form and shape, and they're going to cause all these things all have drawbacks and issues as they're developed and grow. And just so the citizens know, we've talked about this in the past, reassure them that safety is being measured for every delay that's out there.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of planning that really goes in. The Price Boulevard widening project is huge, and you can't 100% make up and account for some of the delays that are going to be made, but there are things that we can do to soften that. And as far as, we've moved some apparatus around, staged resources in different areas at stations. One of the things that we're doing here at the main fire station here on Sumter is we're going to create actually a back emergency access that will go across the waterway here just to the east of us. That will bypass the area of Price Boulevard that's going to be closed while they're redoing that structure. So that will help us with access. But there's going to be some minor delays. We're trying to minimize those as much as we can with the way we have resources and looking at what our busy times of day are. We ask the community that if you don't have to travel on Price Boulevard while this is going on, especially during high traffic times, in the morning for school, lunchtime, the end of the day, if there's another route you can go, we ask that they consider that and take that, because obviously it is going to be a challenge to have rapid responses there. We've got construction along US 41, construction on Hillsborough. All of our major thoroughfares that are east-west thoroughfares in the city really are impacted, except for I-75 right now. So that does make a difference in the things that we do and in our response time. So, but we've moved, added another ambulance to the east end of the city to help incorporate some of that. We've moved one of our district chiefs to the other side, over to Station 84 instead of putting them here at the main station, time to adjust for some of those response delays and things like that. And then we'll be actively monitoring what calls are going on in the city and moving units in a much more proactive manner to kind of absorb any of that.
Well, we got a comment out there. It was great to see Chief Titus and all the great fire and EMS personnel at Saturday's Remember the Fallen Race. Always a powerful and well-run event.
Absolutely, no pun intended. Well-run event. Sean, thank you for the comment. It's again, it's an honor for me to be out there because it's something that our staff really kind of put together. The Honor Guard puts all of that together. It's one of the few things I just get to show up to. I don't do a whole lot in preparation for. I always stay afterwards and help them get cleaned up. But it's a pretty big undertaking to make that happen. But it's definitely a well celebrated community event. And we enjoy coming together with everybody. So thank you.
So yeah, we've got some stuff that's out there that I didn't even know, and you kind of brought it to my attention just minutes before we went live. But can you talk about the Sumter fire station and what's happening there, and so that citizens who don't know, like myself, aren't shocked when they see some action?
Sure. This station where our administration is in the City Hall complex on Sumter Boulevard was originally built in 1988, finished in 1998, finished in 1999. And we had on the books about 5 years ago for a remodel of this station. And we were getting ready to do that. And then we had one of the hurricanes, and there was quite a bit of damage, not only to this building, but a lot of the city buildings and a lot of areas throughout the city. And when we evaluated what that damage was, to bring this station back up to code, because it's greater than 50%. So by code, we had to bring everything up to what the current standards were, and the cost for that, it was kind of cost prohibitive. So it turned out that it made a whole lot more sense to tear this station down and to rebuild it at this location. So we are, that project is underway right now. We are in the process of, if I showed the camera around my office, I'd be a little bit embarrassed and some people would chuckle because it's an absolute mess. We're packing to get out of here, and we're going to be going to City Hall. All the administrative personnel will be at City Hall between there and the George Millen Activity Center. So the prevention staff will be over there. We'll be there for about 18 months. And then our fire crews that are stationed here, we're going to put up a temporary station down there in front of the George Millen Activity Center in their overflow parking. They'll be operating out of that while this station's being torn down and then rebuilt. And so we're expected to be out of this station sometime next month, early next month, and tear down will begin.
And so that project's going to take 18 months to complete?
Yeah, I think it's 16 to 18 months is the timeline. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and we've got a building issue in the city. And we've been talking about that now through a couple of referendums and addressing these things. The citizens need to start talking, don't they?
Well, they've been talking. There's been a lot of conversations, and sometimes we don't end up maybe exactly where we want to, but it's all valuable input to figure out, are we not sending the message correctly, or are we not being clear enough on what's needed? And so the city, I think, is determined to keep trying to meet the needs of the community without the community being impacted in a negative way. But there's some challenges. Our inability to be able to borrow money certainly contributes to that. And even though the housing market is slowing down some, as far as values, kind of dropping a little bit and kind of slowing down, the building continues. The developers are still they're still putting up houses, they're still building, commercial properties, and all of that growth still drives the need for additional services. So even though, some of those things are slowing down and that revenue, decreases, the needs are increasing. So we right now, just the fire department, we are building another station in Welland Park right now, which will be supposed to be completed late June, early July of 26. So that'll be another fire station in the Welland Park area. We're in planning stages for a fire station at Toledo Blade and I-75 area. There's 3 different developers going in up there in separate communities. So we're working to try and get a station location up there. We're planning ahead for hiring those personnel. And then, looking at what our future growth is beyond that. So there's, Welland Park continues to grow, not just in the property they have and the buildings that they're putting up, but they're looking to expand their footprint a little bit, which is going to, drive the need for additional services. And then, there's future discussion for plans further out east as this city, continues to grow as it was intended to, all the way out on the East End, all the way out to, Yorkshire, where right now there's not water and electricity. But if you're following anything and looking at discussions, there's a future interstate, exchange planned out there, and water will be brought in and electric will be brought in. And as soon as those things happen, that'll start taking off on that end of the city, which is going to, drive even more needs. So, already as the largest city by population, but certainly our footprint is large as well. And the way the city is stretched out, a fire station, I can have a unit from Fire Station 86 up in Welland Park. If they had to go all the way to the other end of the city, even run an emergency response, that's probably a 25, 30-minute response time at best. So we need to infill, station locations and things like that so that when we get a structure fire or a medical emergency, we have response times that are commensurate with the level of service that we've established in the city.
Well, we've kind of been blessed this year. I don't think we've had any major fires this year. We're into
knock on wood.
What's that?
Knock on wood when you say that, right?
Lots of it. And we've been blessed in that regard. We still are doing a lot of prep work for anything and everything that comes our way. Can you talk about the training that the firemen and firewomen go through to stay alert and up to speed with what's going on in today's world?
Sure. Well, and I have to say, if there's anybody that's listening that does not follow, our Facebook page, I would ask that you please look up City of Northport Fire Rescue on Facebook, and you will see almost daily some of the major trainings that we do almost every day. And then there's training that goes on individually at every station. So every firefighter, when they get hired on, there's a very consistent and planned stepwise progression from entry-level firefighter to what we call journey worker status, which is when they have the ability to kind of work independently. And then there's several paths they can go from there. They can become an engineer, they can work towards becoming an officer, or both. A lot of those firefighter EMTs then are either paramedics or they're going to paramedic school, to further their education and their abilities. And then, the daily training that we do, there's have-tos that we do for ISO and for state requirements to keep up all of our certifications, but we far, far exceed the number of hours that are required for those things. And we do that because, that service delivery method and model, that we talked about earlier, our mission, you and I have talked about it before, John, but it's, the words in it it's provide exceptional public safety service in a safe, compassionate, professional manner. Exceptional is something that you continue to strive for. We say that we never achieve it, because once you say you've reached it, then people kind of sit on their hands and slow down. And so it's always raising that bar. When we reach a level, then we raise the bar and see what can we do next? What can we be better at? And we really try to set the trend for this area, especially for this community, to provide them what we believe is the best service delivery model that's available in the area. And so we're a very, very young department as fast as we've grown. And with the number of people that have retired over the years, I think our average, probably 60% of our workforce is rated around, has less than 5 or 6 years. So when you think about that, the level of performance that they have with those lower amount of years on the job is 100% attributable to all of the effort that they do in their daily training and holding each other up to a high standard of service delivery. And, we are so thankful for that. All of our personnel have kind of bought into this idea of working to be exceptional every day. And it's something that it's evident in everything that we do. If you stop into a fire station, I think you'd be hard pressed to see people not doing some type of training. So, and again, that goes from the whole group doing organized drills to individual modules to college classes, everything. So it's pretty amazing.
So I'm gonna, we had a conversation the other day, but the whole thing about your leadership, I'm kind of gonna go into that for a second, because leadership kind of filters things down to everyone else, and I happen to really enjoy listening to you talk about your leadership style and what you've been through, and the bumps in the road along the way. You talk about looking at everything and being really proactive on making adjustments. Well, on a personal level, you've done that too, but as a chief, you've had to take things that you thought were like evident for years, and then had to adapt and change things and re-implement. But isn't that what really kind of makes the organization kind of thrive? I mean, giving that leverage to everyone to make better.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and having a great vision or a great idea of where you want to be or where you want an organization to go is fantastic. But you can have the best ideas and you can be, cutting edge, state of the art. If you turn around and nobody's following you, then it doesn't matter. So you can't execute it. So I've been blessed to have amazing role models in my life, from my dad to, all of the people in the fire service community that I've been exposed to as I came up through the system. Chief Lane, who's now our Deputy Chief of Operations, was my original fire chief when I started as a volunteer. And he was just amazing, how he pushed us and what his expectations were. And that was really the start of how I felt we should set the bar in the fire service, and my dad's model for how you treat people and how important people are around you, whether they're, whether it's the CEO or whether they're the person that, works in the kitchen or cleans the floors or does whatever. And you treat them all with respect in the same way, because all of those people have such an important piece of your success in whatever you're trying to do. And we're very blessed as an organization. I would say, about 8 years ago, as an organization, we made a commitment, and everybody really bought into this idea of, I think we've always had a good service delivery model, but everybody really bought into this idea of trying to be exceptional, be better every day. And so, although yes, that's my vision, it's one of the things that I want, I don't share that alone. There are from me all the way down to the newest person, that's something that we talk about daily in execution. It's something that our officers talk about, and they've all embraced that. And so it doesn't matter if I'm here or not here, or if somebody else is here or not here. That's something that has been kind of ingrained to the culture here. And I'm very, very thankful for that, because that's not anything that one person does. That's something that, it really takes the whole department to buy into doing that for the city. And, I used to think fire department, stand alone, we only really needed to worry about us. But truly, our success is also, hinged upon the success of the city and the rest of the departments in the city. There's so much that we in the fire department rely on other departments for. Public Works, we need them to drain water and move water so that we can do the things that we have. We need utilities to make sure that the hydrants are ready to go. We need planning to make sure that we're aware of changes they make in the ULDC and of code things to make sure that the fire codes are met, as well as all the building things, and that we know what's coming out of the ground and what's being planned in the future, so that we can properly plan, fire station locations, resources needed, personnel needed, and on from there. Support from human resources, support from the city manager's office, the city attorney's office, finance. Obviously, we work very, very closely with them on trying to make sure that we are being good stewards of the community's money. We are very, very, we look at everything like it's our money. I don't want to spend it more than I would want to spend my own money. So we take it very seriously when we spend money. When we make decisions, we do things that it's to maintain that level of service and to help make us better for everything that we do every day out on the street. And it's just that whole, kind of team concept throughout the fire department and then throughout the city that really helps to make us successful.
Well, you went through a barrage of departments that affect the fire department on a daily basis, and that central location is back to City Hall again, because it really kind of, that's where it starts and kind of branches out. But in handling all those things as a chief, the one thing I picked up on that I know we do extremely well is our fire department locations. And can you tell the citizens of Northport why it's so valuable that we are strategically placing them in accordance for their homeowners insurance, in that framework? Can you talk about that?
Sure. And I'll talk about that in a number of different ways. So, one of the things as far as EMS, emergency medical services and responses go, there's a very definitive amount of time from the time of, say, having a stroke or having a cardiac arrest, having some type of medical emergency before there's permanent damage to the heart muscle or to the brain or things like that. So we set our response times up in accordance with national standards and try and get to, when we look at our station locations and as we're planning for future development, we want to try to get to 90% of those calls within a certain period of time before that death starts occurring to the heart muscle or things like that. And then fire grows exponentially, and in the past 20 years ago, when I entered the fire service, from the incipient, which is the same as the beginning stage of a fire, it used to be somewhere between 15 and 18 minutes before a fire in a room would reach what we call flashover stage, where everything in that room is on fire. Now that's under 3 minutes, sometimes under 2 minutes. And it's because, years ago, everything was wood. And now we have so many composite materials, they off gas at a much lower temperature. And so they create ladder fuels in the air. And as the air heats up and as flames start, it starts to ignite those ladder fuels, which then it rapidly and exponentially increases that volatile fire reaction. And so, we have sometimes fires that are reaching, quite often, are reaching flashover stage before our first unit is getting on scene or as they're getting on scene. And so it's that much more important that we have fast response. We measure, according to national standards, how many people should we put on scene of a fire within a certain number of minutes. So it's not just the first unit that gets there, but it's that full complement. So on a regular residential structure fire, we're supposed to have 17 people there within 8 minutes. So if you think about our staffing on our engines and our ladder trucks is 3-person staffing. Our ambulances are 2-person staffing. We have a singular district chief in one vehicle and a singular district chief in another area of the district in another vehicle. So, we're talking multiple stations responding to one location for a fire and putting those 17 people on scene within that 8-minute period of time. So it's pretty significant, and that strips us of resources in those areas. We need to backfill that. And that's, so when a call like that happens, we start moving units around the city. We start contacting our mutual aid partners. They help cover some of the outlying areas while we, begin to cover some of those affected areas. And our surrounding agencies do the same thing. So that we can do that within that period of time and be very reactive. The Insurance Services Organization, ISO, which is kind of who looks at insurance rates. Some insurance companies use them, not quite as many as used to, but that's one of the standards they look at. It measures 3 different things. It measures your fire department capabilities, your communication capabilities, and your utilities.
Yep.
So the fire department, what we control here is only 1/3 of that entire score. Our utilities department, they control 1/3 of that score. And then our dispatch 911 communication center controls another 1/3 of that score. So for our last 2 evaluations, we achieved an ISO 1, which is the best ISO rating that you can have. We are due for evaluation. We were supposed to be evaluated actually this past fall, and ISO has kind of fallen behind. So we're we're due to be evaluated anytime now. We've been reaching out to them and asking them to come back in, and our goal is to maintain that ISO 1 status. We're kind of hoping that we get evaluated now before we get too many delays on Price Boulevard, because response times do have something to do with that. So they could impact that some. But we get an opportunity when they come and do an evaluation. If there's an area where you're deficient on points, or if you're close, you can provide a plan to get those points back and maintain that status. I think we'll be very close. I think as far as the fire department goes, we'll maintain our ISO 1 as long as utilities maintains their portion and dispatch maintains their portion. I really don't have any concerns. But every year, obviously, we take that very seriously. Or they do. It's a 3 to 4 year evaluation cycle is what that is supposed to be. So we're due now. We've got everything. All of our records are all set. We're just waiting for them to come down so that we can turn them all over, hand them to them, and have them go through it and go through that evaluation. So,
and all these impact the citizens across the board. Everything that we've talked about for the last 10, 15 minutes, besides at the beginning of the show, those are direct correlations back to the citizens of Northport, correct?
Absolutely. And honestly, the difference between an ISO 1 and ISO 2 on an insurance company that uses ISO for a regular homeowner is probably negligible. You probably wouldn't even know a difference if there was a difference at all on your bill. Honestly, the difference between an ISO 1 and 2 is probably a little bit more bragging rights than it is anything else. On a commercial building, you might notice a little bit more, but again, it's pretty negligible. If you go from a 1 to a 4 or a 1 to a 5, now you're talking there's a pretty significant difference. An ISO 10 is considered no fire protection at all. When I started in Northport in 1993, we were an ISO 8, I believe. And so we went from an 8 to I believe, a 4 to a 2 and then to a 1. And we've been an ISO 1 for, I think, 10 years now. So.
I know this about you, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Isn't there a pride thing of keeping that?
Absolutely. There's, as I said, the difference between ISO 1 and 2 is some of it is really bragging rights, because it doesn't, there isn't a significant difference. I think the toughest thing for us would be peeling that 1 off of a truck and having to replace it with a 2. So that would be a little bit tough. And the optics of it, optics in the community, because a lot of people don't really understand. And so in their mind, that would equate to a decreased level of service to them. And so obviously that's not something we want to portray or something that we want to go through. If for some reason we were to retrograde to a 2, we would identify and make sure the community understood why that occurred, what it was, if it was something that was outside of our control, but then also work with whether that agency was utilities or whether it was 911 dispatch center on putting a plan together on how we get back within that standard. But I'm fairly confident with what we have now that we'll be able to maintain that and do that. And there's a little bit of bragging rights to that. That's one of the things that we use to measure to make sure we're doing what we should. There's so many things. Looking at our response times, the National Fire Protection Association has standards. That was one of the things I talked about, how many people you put on scene within a certain period of time. Obviously, our cardiac arrest rates, our cardiac arrest return of spontaneous circulation rates are extremely high in comparison to what state and national standards are. We're at about 60%. I think state and national standards are less than half of that. So we far, far exceed what the average is. And a lot of that is because of our response times. It's because of the exceptional care that our personnel provide. And a lot of it actually is because of our community participation in CPR. So early CPR and early defibrillation with an AED are drastically improved chances for cardiac arrest survival. So we use those things to kind of measure and model. We have all kinds of things that we do. If you go onto our website, you can look on the city's website, see what our performance measures are. And we look at those continually to see, where we can do better. Are there things that we could do differently? Is there a different performance measure that we could do to try and improve, the standard delivery model that we have? We just last year became accredited under CAS accreditation, which is ambulance accreditation. There are not a lot of agencies in the country and even less in the state that are CAS accredited. And right now we are undertaking and pursuing our international fire accreditation. So if we become fire accredited, which we will, EMS accredited for the ambulance service and an ISO 1, we're probably in the top 0.25% of departments in the country.
That's crazy good. That's crazy good.
Yeah.
Sean Kirkpatrick, I'll let you read this one out on screen.
For the parents watching, especially of high school students, what's the typical training, education, time pathway to get accepted into the fire department? That's a great question, Sean. So one of the things that we didn't talk about yet is we've introduced a new program that just started this year for high school juniors and seniors. It's called the Northport Fire Cadet Program. And so they just started at the beginning of the school year, and they will come 2 nights a month for 4 hours per night through the whole school year. And we give them gear, and we take them through different types of training. They do a lot of the same things that we do. We don't do any live fire scenarios. We don't do any live smoke scenarios or anything like that. But we have fake smoke. We teach them how to advance hose lines. We teach them how to tie knots. We teach them, how to do vehicle extrication, all the basic job skills of things that we have over a 1 year period. And the goal is eventually we'd like to have our own fire academy here in Northport. So if we can move those people through the system and get them from graduating high school senior into a local fire academy here, and then roll them into job opportunities as we have availability. That's ultimately our goal. For high school seniors or for adults that have graduated, there's a number of different options between going to day class or night class, but the minimum certification to get hired here and in most departments is firefighter EMT. And if you go at nighttime, it's about 5 months for each program. So it's a total of 10 or 11 months by the time you put the two together. You can shorten that a little bit if you go to day classes. But that's about the minimum amount of time that it takes to get minimum certified. Then there's a test that you can take through the states, through National Testing Network. You put yourself on eligibility, and when we hire you, select the department, you would come through, you would do an ability test here, and then go through multiple interviews with a board and then a chief's board, and then get kind of judged amongst your peer group that tests with you and selected off of that. So,
and we have several high school graduates from Northport who are now part of our organization, don't we?
Absolutely. My and the school has discontinued they used to have a high school program where in the morning they could go to classes, high school classes. In the afternoon they could go to either fire or the EMT program. My son, and actually we have some people here that did that over the years that we've hired on. My son actually went through the program, started as a junior at Sarasota High School, and he went through the program. And summertime when he got out, he finished his Fire 2, became state certified, took his EMT state test. And so at 18 years old, he got hired on by Charlotte County, and he worked there for almost 3 years. And then he just transferred to Sarasota County. He's been there for 6 or 8 months. And in the meantime, he went through paramedic school. So he was going through paramedic school. So now he's a firefighter paramedic with Sarasota County. And he's got almost 4 years in the job, and he's just turned 22 years old. So it's pretty awesome.
That's crazy. I want to slide over to STC real quick because we're talking about education. Can you talk about the relationship you have with STC? And Mike Indy over there does a fantastic job and keeping that school running as sharp as he can. Can you talk about that relationship and how valuable that is?
Yeah, Mike has been just an incredible supporter of us ever since he was at STC South here when it opened up as the deputy director. And then just this past year, actually within the last 6 months, Mike has been promoted. The previous director retired, and Mike's been promoted. He's the director now over all of Suncoast Technical College, so not just the South Campus, but the campus up in Sarasota as well. And he's still a Northport resident, so he still is a great advocate for us. About 2 years ago, they started their EMT program here. So we do have an EMT program that runs here in the city. Yep. That's at STC South. We've been in discussions with him on working towards offering a paramedic program down here. So we're hoping within the next maybe 18 months, we can actually have a paramedic program hosted right here in the city. So we wouldn't have to send our students all the way to Sarasota for that, or to Charlotte. So yeah, he's been fantastic. We've done several of our annual badge pinning and promotion ceremonies over there, and they've given us the facility to use, which has been absolutely wonderful. They've hosted some classes for us without charging us, where we've done some aerial operations, some engineer classes where they've allowed us to use their facility and have departments from all over the state come in, and we instruct and teach those classes. So yeah, it's been a great partnership with them. We're very, very fortunate to have them.
Go ahead.
No, that was it. We've been very, very fortunate and continually talking about, what else can we do? What more can we do in the future? We're actually working with them right now. They're looking to open a new fire training facility I believe it's fall of 27 in the Nokomis Venice area out by Knights Trail Park, off of Laurel Road. Their current fire training facility is at Beneva and Fruitville. They're going to be closing that down and building on this new site. And when they do that, they've got several portable classrooms up there that we've been in discussions with them. They're going to let us move a couple of those classrooms down here to our fire training facility so that police and fire can have those, so we can put classes on here in the city until we have the opportunity to be able to build permanent classrooms in the future. But that will give us some classrooms to operate out of in the meantime, which will be great.
We're constantly making adjustments. You just hit a couple more with temporary buildings coming in, so you can kind of advance the training and do things like that. In talks with the Northport PD, they do the same thing, and they're really trying to hone in on what they do. I talked to Public Works, and Public Works does that. You went down the barrage of all of the departments that affect daily fire department running, and it really is more of a business outline model of what you do. From it's not, you're not the firefighter you were 20 years ago. You're now the chief, and can you describe that scenario and the relationships that you have to maintain within the city and how valuable it is to have the city running well oiled?
Sure. It's well, one, it's nice. There's been changeover of a lot of personnel in the city. I've been here for a long time. So, but it's nice having those relationships so that when you have a problem or you have a need and you need help figuring something out, you have resources and people that you can call in different departments and say, how can I get this done? Or can you guys help with that? And we've been, very successful. I will tell you, one of the, so fire and police both had, between the two agencies, I think we had $9 million roughly towards the future fire and police training facility out here by the high school. And that wasn't enough money to fund that project for the classrooms and everything that was needed. The Emergency Operations Center project came up. We need a facility that we can work out of that's hardened, that will direct all the city operations, pre and post natural disaster and storm time. And so both fire and police moved that funding they had for those fire training, fire and police training facility classrooms and things, because it wasn't fully funded. We gave that money towards the EOC, which was really got them started with that project. There were some other monies that we had to put in there, and actually we're in the process right now of trying to come up with, I think we're looking at 1.6 million that we're still short on that project, that we're still working on finding funding for, so that project can come out of the ground starting this year. But again, that was a partnership and a realization that fire and police weren't going to be able to do what we wanted in the timeline we had. We didn't have enough funding, and so that money was moved, and that's working with finance and working with city manager's office and working with the police department to say, we hate to give this up right now, but we will work on finding funding for that in the future. EOC is a greater need, and so
big time
working on that. Yeah, so it's been fantastic.
I'm glad you kind of hit on the EOC. We've got about 9 minutes left, roughly, or 8 minutes left, but the EOC is a piece of the puzzle people really need to kind of hone in on for a bit, and learn more about, and the reasons why. Being somebody who's served twice in the EOC and has firsthand seen what goes on behind those walls, I am someone who you can ask questions to. I am not a professional at all, but I know the value of what the citizens are gaining every time we have to go into the EOC for a lockdown, and the citizens need to know how secure they are with that group of people. There's some phenomenal people in that room. You're one of them, but can you highlight that just for a few minutes on the value of why people should engage and learn more about the EOC, and why the future EOC is really in dire need?
Well, nobody likes to talk about emergency management until there's an emergency, and then they expect emergency management to have all the answers, right? So,
Right.
It's something that program has grown dramatically in the city over the years. It's something that, in partnership with Sarasota County, of course, Sarasota County has an EOC up in Sarasota, but it's very difficult for them to serve this community down here just because of location. So we're kind of a satellite of Sarasota County, and we work together through those storms. The facility that we have at City Hall, we've just outgrown it, and the City Hall facility is not hardened to the level that it should be to provide an emergency operations center. And although we've made it work, we're sleeping on blow up mattresses on the floor, and dragging coolers back and forth with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and things like that. And we've made it work, but it's not ideal. And I can tell you this past storm season, there's some people that were really uncomfortable with that facility having been hit pretty hard by storms previously, as to whether or not it was going to stand up to. And one of the things you don't want your personnel that are assigned in that kind of a duty is you don't want them to be concerned about their own personal safety when they're trying to look out for the big picture of everything that they need to do for the community. So, we all have to make sure that our families are taken care of, and then be able to turn that switch off and then focus on what the needs are for the city, and to build a hardened facility and be able to operate out of that without worry of the safety, and having people be rested when they need to be rested and things like that is so incredibly valuable. It's something we've been working towards for a long time, and we've just gotten to the size where it's just imperative that we need to get that done. So we're working very, very hard right now. We're kind of on the 5-yard line, and working really hard to kind of bring that ball into the end zone so that we can get that project off the ground. The GMP just came back, which is the guaranteed maximum price. And as I said, we're a little bit shy on that, but we have some ideas, and we're going to work again with our partners here in the city and see if we can come up with that little bit of money to be able to get that project going. So, because
all those things, they matter, don't they?
Well, they do. And when you do something like this, as more time goes on, things just get more expensive. So sometimes shelving something and waiting, a year isn't great, because what the increases are, it's really hard to make those back up. So I've got a question here on the thing. I want to see great information today on the lighter side. Who won this year's boots and badges? I wanted to go ahead and proudly share that Boots won this year's blood drive. So the fire department firefighters won, and that actually announcement's coming up pretty soon. We're going to do a press kickoff and some pictures and stuff like that in the next couple of weeks, so that we'll get that out to everybody. But we're excited. It's a good, friendly competition with the police department, but really the winners are everybody in the community that need blood. So it's something we all like to do, and kind of partner with the community to get that necessarily blood supply during difficult times. So
absolutely. So you've managed to make it through the gauntlet here. I think we had a great range. Thanks, Sean, and others for questions. Zio's 1221 Pizzeria for liking the show, and also Daniel Fitton for loving the show, I guess, or the live stream. But I appreciate everybody who's been watching. Please share it, because this information that we're providing is only as good as what the citizens' participation is in it. So if you can share it out there to the community, help us get the word out. I'm sure that Chief Titus would and love the fact that we're getting lots of views and the insight that he provides on what's happening at the fire department each and every month is a major player for us here in Northport. So I appreciate you coming on board and and spending time with us. It's very valuable to all of us.
John, we appreciate you having us on. And again, it's always an honor to be able to speak to you and actually speak on behalf of all the men and women of Northport Fire Rescue. They do a phenomenal job. If you see them out on the street, please thank them. We should be very proud of all of the stuff that they do and that they accomplish on a daily basis. They really do a phenomenal job. And again, don't forget Thursday, 9:15 in front of City Hall, 9/11. We'd love to see everybody out there to help us honor those lives that were lost that day in 2001. And thanks again for having us. We look forward to being with you again in the future, John.
All right. Thanks, Chief Titus. You all have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks for watching, and like and share it.
Thank you.